The voters have displayed their commitment to participating in the process, despite allegations of fraud and interference. In the recent election, the people of Pakistan showed up to vote in unprecedented numbers, which is very positive. However, I was deeply concerned by well-documented instances of interference in the February elections, including a terrorist attack at a candidate's political offices hours before the polls opened, and also a major internet and cell service shutoffs on election day. These events are serious and consequential. I've called for a full investigation into any allegations of interference or corruption in their recent elections.
As we know, in early February, the elections were held after a nearly 3-month delay that raised serious concerns about the democratic process in Pakistan. I also know that the State Department joined other international election observers in expressing concern that the election included undue restrictions on freedoms of expression, association, and assembly.
I hope that we can, after this hearing, continue the work of making sure that we actually fully investigate the election and that we actually make sure people are let out of jail that were put in there that unfairly, because democracy in Pakistan, of course, will serve the people of Pakistan, but it is so clearly in the United States' interest. I started out on this seeing the failures we had in Latin America of prioritizing military relationships over democratic relationships, and it never served us there, and it won't serve us in Pakistan very well. So
we allow the top generals in Pakistan to visit the United States when American citizens can't leave Pakistan and come to the United States. They have banned the bat, the symbol of the PTI, then they banned the batsman. I mean, there have been flaws in other Pakistani elections, but this is perhaps the greatest flaw. Do we have faith that Imran Khan has not been the victim of selective prosecution? Or is it apparent that he has been? One thing you need to do. The American ambassador needs to visit Imran Khan in prison and make sure that he lives to tell the tale of how he was wrongfully imprisoned through selective prosecution. I yield back.
Do you believe that the recent election was free and fair?
Sir, we have never used the term free and fair in the characterization of this election.
To what level, then, would you say interference happened?
Sir, we have expressed, and I've said this multiple times today, serious concerns about the pre-election environment, violence that occurred, terrorism and political violence. We have expressed concern about the failure to register individual candidates and political parties, the mass arrests of those in opposition, the shutdown of internet, and the censorship and pressure placed on journalists.
We have substantial leverage in Pakistan in two ways. First, the IMF, where we have a loud voice and we should use it more often. And second, we could deny visas to high-ranking Pakistani officials. We need to focus on human rights in Pakistan. I'm particularly focused on Sindh and the disappearances there, the forced conversions, young girls forced to convert and then marry old men. And we've seen throughout Pakistan a blasphemy law that allows a person to complain, and all of a sudden someone who's not Muslim usually is subject to detention and even execution. But the greatest problem is Dr. Afridi. That is something we discussed in this room last decade again and again. He's in jail for 14 years. We released Victor Aboud to get an American back. And the message to everyone in the world, and this is a national security risk, is don't cooperate with the CIA. Because if you're an American national, we'll move heaven and earth to get you out. But if you're the one foreign national who did the most for America of anyone this century, you will rot in jail. The Pakistanis have said that they will do a Siddiqui for Afridi trade. Ms. Siddiqui didn't kill any Americans, tried to, ought to be in jail, is now perhaps incapacitated anyway. Will we trade Siddiqui for Afridi? And if not, will we ban from entry into this country those who are holding her hostage, Dr. Afridi hostage? Or do we just turn our back on any foreign national? The man who is responsible for getting bin Laden is in a Pakistani jail. Mr.
Representative
Secretary?
Sherman, I first want to thank you personally, but also thank this committee and the Congress.
Sir, I have
for
one,
its
I will yield 10
advocacy.
seconds to say Siddiqui for Afridi, yes or no?
Mr. Sherman, I have been in this job for more than 2.5 years. I have never had a Pakistani official raise with me.
They've told me, they've told your predecessor, they've told the State Department, Afridi's in jail, you haven't done anything about it, and he's the man that helped us get bin Laden. But let's move on.
Sir,
I've got it, sir. I only get 5 minutes.
Go ahead.
We have the exit control list where hundreds of American citizens are prohibited from leaving Pakistan. Will we treat them the same way we deal with everyone else who's wrongfully detained in Russia and elsewhere? What are we doing to get American citizens who have not been even charged with a crime out of Pakistan if they want to leave?
Representative Sherman, we work every day on behalf of American citizens in Pakistan. As you note, there are some laws that have put undue restrictions on Americans. We have had a very positive track record.
Hundreds are still there, and the IMF loan goes forward, and we allow the top generals in Pakistan to visit the United States when American citizens can't leave Pakistan and come to the United States. We then have the vote tabulation system, and they have banned the bat, the symbol of the PTI. Then they banned the batsman. And this is, there have been flaws in other Pakistani elections, but this is perhaps the greatest flaw. And we're told, and the Pakistani ambassadors told me, well, this is just the ordinary working of the Pakistani judicial system. That's the same judicial system that has Dr. Afridi in jail for 14 years for getting bin Laden. Do we have faith that Imran Khan has not been the victim of selective prosecution? Or is it apparent that he has been?
Sir, following the rioting on May 9th, the day Imran Khan was arrested, the United States government has raised our concerns about the mass detention of members of the opposition, to include the PTI. We have raised concerns about the use of military courts.
If I can interrupt, there's one thing you need to do. The American ambassador needs to visit Imran Khan in prison and make sure that he lives to tell the tale of how he was wrongfully imprisoned through selective prosecution. I yield back.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks also to the ranking member for having me here today. Mr. Liu, I'm sure you're aware, I led a letter alongside 30 of my colleagues here in Congress to the State Department as well as to the President. You've got it right there, talking about credible allegations of election rigging in the Pakistani elections. And we urged that the administration withhold recognition of the new government in Pakistan until a credible and transparent investigation on election interference had been conducted. I know that the U.S. Embassy congratulated Mr. Sharif, quote, on his assumption of the office of Prime Minister, but I haven't seen a statement yet from the State Department itself. So just so we're clear at this point, yes or no, has the U.S. officially recognized the new government in Pakistan?
Representative Kesar, I would like to answer with a yes or no. The actual answer is a little more complicated, if you'll allow me. The government of the United States, we don't actually go around recognizing or withholding recognition of new governments. That's not something we do anywhere around the world. What we do is we decide whether we're going to engage with a government. And so, yes, you have seen actions by our ambassador, our embassy. We are, in every interaction with this government, stressing the importance of accountability for election irregularities, sir. Can I just also add, your letter is incredibly important. It's important that the Pakistani people, the Pakistani government hear not only from the administration, but from members of Congress, and having so many of them speak together has real influence. The administration largely agrees with your recommendations. We have done many of the things that you have proposed. We have said publicly and privately that we want to see transparent and credible investigation of election irregularities. We have called for accountability for mass detentions of people in the opposition, and we have said loudly and clearly that military trials for civilians accused of crimes after May 9th is not in keeping with international norms.
I appreciate that. And so in other cases, for example, in the case of Venezuela or some other countries where the State Department has spoken out very clearly about election rigging, and we can talk about separately about how it is that we treat those governments or treat those countries, but it seems that when we have had allegations of election rigging, that we've spoken out much more clearly than in this case. And I would urge that we continue to speak with the level of moral clarity that we have in other situations. But I appreciate your recognition and speaking out here today about how it's not okay for us to be having journalists jailed, for Twitter to get shut down, for there to be this continued, very clear to me, interference in democracy. Given the credible allegations of fraud and rigging, what gives you confidence that this government will have the democratic legitimacy necessary, not only for the interests of the Pakistani people, but for the interests of the United States?
Sir, the political and economic stability of Pakistan is important for the United States. It is important that the Pakistani people...
And I'm short on time. Is it your sense right now that there is going to be that democratic legitimacy, or do we have real concerns? I'm sorry, I have one more question for you, so just give me your...
Sir, I think that's up to the process ongoing now in the Electoral Commission of Pakistan.
One more question. Most security assistance to Pakistan has been suspended since 2018. Recently, the Pakistani ambassador said that Pakistan's awaiting a decision from the U.S. on increasing military sales and financing. Yes or no, are there ongoing conversations about increasing military assistance to Pakistan?
No ongoing conversation about large-scale increases, no.
That's good to hear. Given that the U.S. has already sent hundreds of millions of dollars in aid, are there any steps the State Department is taking to ensure that the aid we send is not used for any of these abuses that you've identified?
Sir, absolutely. There is very close monitoring of where our military assistance goes around the world, including to Pakistan. For example, the F-16s sold to Pakistan over 40 years ago have active U.S. technical security teams monitoring their use every day.
Thank you for that. Has the U.S. identified any units of military or security forces that would not be eligible for aid?
Yes.
We have identified those. Thank you for your clear answers. Thank you for being here through this hearing, and I hope that we can, after this hearing, continue the work of making sure that we actually fully investigate the election and that we actually make sure people are let out of jail that were put in there unfairly, because democracy in Pakistan, of course, will serve the people of Pakistan, but it is so clearly in the United States' interest. I started out on this seeing the failures we had in Latin America of prioritizing military relationships over democratic relationships, and it never served us there, and it won't serve us in Pakistan very well. So thank you so much, Mr. Lee.
Thank you, sir.